So welcome everyone to our webinar this evening, Advanced Diabetes Nutrition, taking it to the next level. We're so happy that you're all joining us this evening. Should you have any technical difficulties during the broadcast, there is a number at the bottom of the screen to call for support. It's 1-800-263-6317. And there's also a webinar ID at the bottom of the screen that you'll need to provide so they can help you. So this is an interactive program this evening. Our format includes a short presentation followed by an interactive discussion. To type in a question, use the question section of your webinar toolbar. At the end, you'll have a chance to ask questions. So we look forward to an interactive webinar this evening. Just a disclaimer, we know that the information you're about to hear may motivate you to make lifestyle changes. So please consult your physician before making any changes to your current routine. This online Q&A session is intended to give general advice. This information is not a substitute for personal medical advice and involves the professional opinion of the Cecilia Health Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialist. Our webinar leader this evening is Rochelle Lynham. Rochelle is a physician assistant and certified diabetes care and education specialist. She has 2 sons and she enjoys running and biking. She has been with Cecilia Health for 2 years. We're very pleased that you're able to join us this evening, Rochelle, and we thank you for your knowledge and your expertise. So you may take it away, Rochelle.
All right, thank you, Katie. Hello, everyone. My name is Rochelle. I'm a physician assistant and certified diabetes educator. And here's a list of what we are going to go over today. So we're going to talk about nutrition and what is a carbohydrate and where is it found? Do I need to think about other nutrients other than carbohydrates? We're going to go over the glycemic index and how to read a food label and the importance of understanding that. We'll talk about fiber and then go over some sugar substitutes and which ones are the safest for diabetics, and how to manage diabetes using carbohydrate and counting. And then we're going to finish up with questions, answers, and sharing. And of course, please talk with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diabetes treatment plan. So first off, food is made up of 3 main nutrients. These are the proteins, the fats, and carbohydrates. Proteins, they're found in our meats and cheeses, in our beans and our dairy. And when we're thinking about protein, ideally we want to choose a lean protein, ideally plant-based. But there's many lean protein options out there, and some of these are chicken and turkey breast, fish, shrimp, beans are going to be a good, nice lean protein, lower fat cheese, and a low fat milk. The second main nutrient group are your fats. So these are butters, oils, including olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, your dressings, nuts, and avocados. And when you're choosing your fats, ideally you want to choose a plant fat, such as the avocado or avocado oil, or your nuts, nut butter, or your oils. And then the last nutrient group is your carbohydrates. So these are your starches. Your fruit is actually made, this includes fruit, which most people are not as familiar with. Your milk has a lot of carbohydrates in it. And your sugars, so your sweets, treats, pastries, anything like that will be in the carbohydrate category. And there's 3 main types of carbohydrates. So these are your sugars, your starches, and fiber. So what is a carbohydrate? So this is the main nutrient in food that raises blood sugar levels. The amount and type of carbohydrate you're eating is going to determine how quickly your blood sugar is going to go up after you eat that type of food. So, for example, drinking a carbohydrate, so drinking a liquid like juice, energy drinks, soda, that is going to increase your blood sugar more rapidly than a carbohydrate from more of a solid food, such as breads, a pasta, a fruit. And those types of solid foods, the carbohydrates are going to be slower to convert to increase your blood sugar. Some foods do not have carbohydrates, so that would be your non-starchy vegetables like uh, kale, spinach, your leafy greens, broccoli, the healthy fats such as the butter, the oils, your eggs, and the protein, the chicken, the fish, shrimp, and then cheeses and nuts. So these types of foods are not going to increase your blood sugar levels because have very little or no carbohydrates in them. So when you're sitting down to a meal, you rarely are just going to eat one food group. Uh, it's usually going to be a mixture. You want to have that well-balanced plate. For example, the ideal plate is going to have half of your plate should be vegetables. So you might imagine your salad, your steamed broccoli, grilled zucchini, all of that would include half the plate. A quarter of the plate is your protein. So it could be a chicken breast, a piece of fish, some shrimp, some lentils. And then the other quarter is going to be your carbohydrates. And of course, with the goal being whole grain carbohydrates. So whole grain pasta, whole wheat bread, uh, something of that nature. So when you're sitting down for your meal, you're not just going to have all protein or all vegetables or all fat. So how high blood sugar will go up will depend on if you're having a well-balanced and a mixed meal, and specifically how much fat and protein you are eating. And with your carbohydrates, are they simple carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates? So for example, a hamburger and a bun with a salad is going to raise your blood sugar more slowly than just the bun alone, because the bun alone would just be a simple carbohydrate. Whereas if you have the hamburger and the salad, you're adding in a protein and you're adding in your vegetables as well. So glycemic index, some people may have heard of this before. I find that this is an area that just most of us don't understand completely. So the GI, the glycemic index, is going to measure how quickly and how high your blood sugar will rise in response to different foods. So after you eat a food, how fast and how high will your blood sugar go up? So this is going to only apply to carbohydrates, foods that have carbohydrates in them. So for example, the red zone is the high glycemic index. So that is considered 70 or above. You can see the example of that is white bread. Medium glycemic index is in the range of 55 to 69. So you can see that still a carbohydrate. It is whole wheat bread though. And then a lower glycemic index is 54 or less. So that's going to be more of a well-balanced meal, fewer carbohydrates in the foods. So high glycemic foods that can raise your blood sugar levels within as little as 15 minutes after you eat these foods. So some of these examples, like I said, are white bread, bagel is very high in carbohydrates, cereals such as cornflakes, puffed rice, uh, bran flakes, instant packets of oatmeal, rice, potatoes, um, pumpkins, pretzels, rice cake, popcorn, melons, and pineapple. So you see there's a very large list of foods that are going to raise your blood sugars very fast, even including the fruit. And then the lower glycemic index foods have more of a modest effect on your blood sugar levels. So it's going to take longer for your blood sugar levels to rise after you eat that. So that would be whole wheat bread with 100% whole grains, even pumpernickel bread, regular oatmeal, not the instant packets, and that could be steel cut, rolled, muesli, barley, sweet potatoes, corn, even some of the vegetables like lima beans, peas, uh, the beans, lentils, and most fruits are going to have a lower glycemic index, but not all of them. And then the non-starchy vegetables and carrots. So these foods that I just listed have the lower GI scale, so they're going to have more of a modest effect on your blood sugar levels. So why did I just explain this? How is using the glycemic index helpful when you're making food choices? So you should try to choose foods that have a lower glycemic index because they're going to raise your blood sugar levels more gradually and not raise them as high. So you will feel full longer after eating these foods with a lower glycemic index, and you're going to feel satisfied longer. It's going to satiate your appetite, and so it's going to help with weight control as well, which is always the goal for everyone. And when you choose the higher GI foods, you need to monitor your blood sugars after eating to see how high it goes, and then this will help you learn your body's response to these different foods and which ones to make you feel better and keep you full longer. So just a quick review. Most of you have seen food labels. Many of you probably already know how to read them. So if you're turn a package over, and for example, if this is the label you're looking at, for example, this might be I don't know, a box of rice crackers. So first off, you look at the serving size. So the serving size is 1/2 cup. So that's important because when you're reading the food labels, you want to know how much of that food you can have to when you're looking at these calories and nutrition counts. So in this box, for example, there's going to be 4 servings, and each serving will be a 1/2 cup. And then you move down to the calories. So in each 1/2 cup, there are 90 calories. And then if you move down, these are the ones that you need to be aware of, but try to limit the amount that you have. So in this 1/2 cup, there are 3 grams of fat, 0 grams of saturated fat, 0 cholesterol, and 300 milligrams of sodium. So you know that you probably won't find something with 0 all the way down, but you want to have just try to limit the amount you take of these of the fats each day. And then down here you have your vitamin and mineral count. So you see the vitamin A, calcium, vitamin C, and iron. And this tells you the daily percentage how much you're getting. And then on this side you have the quick guide to daily percentage value. So 5% or less is pretty low. 20% or more is better. And then just the footnotes on what it's based off of, a 2,000 calorie diet, which everyone is going to be different on the calories that they should be eating per day. So that would be something to talk with your medical provider about. So when you're reading your food level, check the ingredient list. You want to be able to recognize the ingredients in your food. There's fewer processed items and more real and whole foods. So when you're reading your food label, the ingredients are listed in descending order by weight. So those with the largest amounts are listed first. So if you're looking for whole grain to be one of the first ingredients in starchy foods, because like I said, we want to be having whole grain foods, whole wheat flour, whole grain foods, and less sugar. But sugar can come in many forms. It doesn't always say just straight sugar. So for example, it can use words such as dextrose, cane sugar, corn sweetener, corn syrup solids, evaporated cane juice, fructose, fruit juice concentrates, high fructose corn syrup, malt syrup, concentrated fruit juice, or maltodextrin. So you have to be able to recognize all of these other words that basically mean that this is the sugar and that there's sugar in that food item. So fiber is a very important part of our diet. Most of us do not get enough of it. So for example, women should have 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. Men should have 35 grams, and most of us do not quite get there. So fiber is a type of carbohydrate, just like sugars and starches, but it's not broken down by the body, and it doesn't contribute any calories. So on a food label, fiber is listed under total carbohydrates. So here we go, right here, total carbohydrates is 13 grams and dietary fiber is 3 grams. Because the fiber doesn't raise your blood sugar levels, the grams of fiber can be subtracted from the total grams of carbs on a label. And many foods that contain fiber, such as fruits, vegetables, whole wheat breads, whole grain cereals, and pastas, also contain sugar, which need to be counted. So in this food label, you see the total count is 13 grams. Fiber is 3. So down here, we could do 13, subtract 3 grams for the fiber, and then you will have 10 grams of available carbs. Sugar substitutes, that's always a big question. What are they? What are they made of? Which ones are safe? So here are the most common sugar substitutes. So the blue packet Equal is made from aspartame. So this is 200 times as sweet as sugar, and this will not raise your blood sugar levels. Another really common one is sucralose. It is seen in the yellow packet called Splenda. And this sugar is 600 times as sweet as sugar, and it contains about 1 gram of carbs per packet or teaspoon. And it could affect blood glucose levels if you consume a large quantity at one time. Another one is saccharin or sweet and low in that pink packet. This is 300 to 500 times as sweet as sugar with no effect on blood glucose levels. Another one that I had not heard of, this one, it's under the Sunnit or Sweet One are the brand names, and it's 300 times as sweet as sugar, and this does not affect your blood glucose levels. And then stevia, it's also called a sweet leaf, truvia, stevia. This one has no effect on blood glucose levels. So sugar substitutes, these are known as sugar alcohols, typically less sweet than sugar. They provide half the calories of sugar. Since half the carbohydrates of sugar alcohols are not absorbed by the body, you can subtract half the sugar alcohol grams from the total carb grams on a label. So here you see the list of all these options of the sugar alcohols. And even though they are called sugar alcohol, they do not contain any alcohol at all. So carbohydrate counting. If this is something that your medical provider has talked to you about, it can get a little tricky or confusing. So carb counting can be used by anyone with diabetes, and it can be helpful in dosing rapid acting mealtime insulins. So some of the names of mealtime insulins are Novolog, Humalog, or Pedra. And so the tools needed if you're going to do carbohydrate counting are measuring cups and a scale. And then you need an app from your phone or a reference book to look up carb content on various foods and then review the food label. So if you have a smartphone, you can download an app. There's going to be many options. And if you don't have a smartphone, you can find, this is one of the many good examples out there, a reference book for looking up carb counting. So starting before you eat, you need to measure or weigh your portion and the food that you on your plate. And then you will look it up in this reference tool or in the app, and look up the grams of carbs that the portion of food has. So you can find these at any store. So at the dollar store, Walmart, Target. The Calorie King is just one of many options for this, or if you have a smartphone, you can use one of the apps, which probably is going to be faster. So if you're not taking a rapid acting mealtime insulin, try to keep your grams of carbs consistent for each meal per day. So which this does not mean that you have to eat the exact same foods for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but try to be consistent. For example, try to have 2 to 3 servings of carbohydrates for each of your meals. That's the recommendation. Versus one day having 0 carbohydrates and the next day making up for it and doing double, because this is going to help keep your blood sugars more regulated. And then if you do take rapid acting insulin, you can speak with your provider or your health educator about dosing of insulin based upon how many carbs you are eating. And they will usually have a scale for you to go on how many units to give yourself per amount of carbs in that meal. And then 2 hours after you eat, checking your blood sugars. And this can help determine the proper dose of your insulin for the carbohydrates that you ate to see if you were correct. So here's just a quick example. So this is just an example of a snack, not a true meal. So if you're going to have an apple and a peanut butter as a snack, so that the peanut butter, you have some protein and a healthy fat. And with the apple, you have, that's your carbohydrate. So first, before you even eat, you need to measure and weigh. So the apple weighs 3 ounces, and the amount of peanut butter you're going to have with it is 2 tablespoons. So using your reference book or your app, you look up 3 ounces of an apple and you see that it's 15 grams of carbohydrates. And then you can look at the label of the jar of peanut butter, and 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is 6 grams of carbs. So you just add the two together, 15 plus 6, and you know that in your snack, it is 21 grams of carbs. And a good range for a snack, that is right, that is correct. It's between 15 and 30 grams for a snack. So transitioning over to a meal, for example, chicken, rice, broccoli, and some pudding. Before you start eating, have all your food laid out for you. You want to measure and weigh each of the items. So know how much rice you have, 2/3 cup of rice. Measure the broccoli, you have a cup of broccoli. Pudding is you're going to have about a half a cup. And chicken is a protein, so that has no carbs. So you look up each of the food items, and you can see that for rice, 1/3 cup of rice is 15 grams. So since we have double that, we have 2/3 cup of rice. We double the carbs, so we know we have 30 grams of carbs in that serving of rice. 1 cup of broccoli has 6 grams of carbs. And then the label on the pudding says a half a cup is 25 grams. So you add them all up, 30 plus 6 plus 25, and in that meal, you have 61 grams of carbohydrates. And the recommendation for carbs for a meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, is 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates. So this example shows 61 grams, and I would say that is still pretty darn good. So tips and tricks for successful easy carb counting. So we tend to go back and eat more or less similar foods on a rotating basis. So once you have labeled, measured, and calculated the carbs in some of the more common foods you eat, you don't necessarily need to do it every single meal, as long as you're eating more or less the same portion size. And then every month, try to go back and remeasure the foods just to ensure that you're still on track with your carbohydrate counting and your estimates are accurate. Also, some foods have the food labels to make looking up carbohydrates easy. Sometimes it's listed right on the label for you. And then for fresh foods, you do need to weigh or measure because it's hard to just eyeball some of these things. What, a 2-ounce versus a 3-ounce versus 4 ounces an apple. It's hard to just eyeball that until you're very familiar with it. So be consistent and measure and weigh. Okay, so in summary, today we went over a bunch of things about nutrition, and I hope that you have all gained some knowledge and understanding of some of these advanced diabetes nutrition concepts. So we went over which foods contain carbohydrates and which foods don't. We talked about the GI or the glycemic index and how it relates to blood sugars, the important items to read and review on any food label, how fiber affects your health and your diabetes. We talked about sugar substitutes and which ones are safe for diabetics. And we talked about counting carbohydrates to have better control of your blood sugars. And we talked about the safe range for meals and for a snack. All right. Thank you so much for attending. So if you have any questions that have not been answered during the course of this webinar, please go to the question portion of your screen and you can type it in there. And again, my name is Rochelle Lynham. I work for Cecilia Health. I'm a physician assistant and certified diabetes educator. And lastly, here are some live events coming up. So Blood Sugar Boot Camp, the ins and outs of blood sugar testing on August 20th at 6 p.m. A Happy Heart is a Healthy Heart on September 24th at 6 p.m. And all of these are Eastern Standard Times. And Diabetes 101, Mastering the Essentials on October 20th at 6 p.m. All right, and I have some questions coming in. So our first question is what foods can cause bloating or what foods to avoid that can cause bloating? So this is going to be particular for each person. Everyone is going to have a different response to foods. Often the more high fiber foods can cause bloating, such as, let me just get a safe list here. A lot of the higher fiber vegetables, such as broccoli, even though they're very healthy, they can cause some bloating for people. Sometimes the legumes can cause bloating, even onions and barley, but truly it is going to be keeping a food journal and understand what affects you the most. Carbohydrate beverages often can cause it. Some people are affected by wheat. So again, this is going to be very specific for per person. Oh, okay. So I got here it is, what foods to be avoided to minimize bloating. So again, like I said, it's going to be keeping a food diary, knowing exactly which ones affect you, but the ones that I just went over are the more common ones that most people seem to trigger bloating for people. So do you subtract the number of sugar grams located under the carb category? Yes. So you take the total number, wait, The number of sugar grams. Let me understand. I'll go back to the slide that we were talking about sugars. So you take, sorry about flipping around here. So you would take the total number of carbs and you subtract the dietary fiber, not the sugars, to find the total carbs in that food item. So you don't subtract the sugar grams, you subtract carbohydrates minus fiber to find the total carbohydrates in the food. So the next question is, aren't some of the sugar substitutes cancer causing? So there is a lot of controversy about sugar substitutes. The current recommendation and guidelines for the Diabetes Association are that these are the acceptable sugar substitutes, and discussing how they affect your blood glucose level. But absolutely, I would encourage you to do your own research when looking into anything you're putting in your body, and less is certainly better. Fewer chemicals are going to be better, and many of these are chemicals. So what we teach on here is what is on the guidelines for the diabetes, the recommendations for the Diabetes Association. But absolutely, there is some controversy regarding some of these sugar substitutes. Can you send us the webinar presentation? I will have to ask if this is going to be posted anywhere. Katie, are you familiar with this?
Yes, hey Rochelle. So we are in the process of recording all of the webinars, and we are going to upload those all to a website. And as soon as that is available, we will be able to kind of share that with your patients. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for recordings of the webinars, to reach out to your coach, your Cecilia Health Diabetes coach, and hopefully very soon she will be able to share with you the link where you can go back and watch the past webinars. So we're working on that.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Okay, we have time for a few more questions. One of them is, does snacking late at night impact glycemic index? Yes, absolutely it does. So anything you put in your body at any time of day is going to affect your glycemic index if it has a carbohydrate in it. So if you're having salmon or lean protein in the middle of the night as your late night snack, no, because it doesn't raise your glycemic index. If you're having anything with a carbohydrate, yes, it's going to raise your blood sugar levels, which will affect you throughout the day. It's a very hard habit to break. I absolutely, I understand. Where can I find the table for measuring carbs? So that's going to be either in the app on your smartphone, or you can purchase one of those carbohydrate counting books that are available in pretty much every store. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Daniel. So any other specific questions, please reach out to your diabetes coach, and they can continue the conversation about nutrition and go from there. And then hopefully this will be posted as well. All right, and then the last page of my slide did have contact information. So if you have any other questions, you can contact your coach. And here are the upcoming live events, and here are the other places to get more information. So there's a Facebook group called the Diabetes Innovation Hub, and the Cecilia Health blog as well. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.